Sponsored by the Dunleary Rattown Local Enterprise Office. You're listening to Business Eye on Dublin South FM.
And welcome, folks. Friday, Dublin South FM Business Eye with myself and my very good friend and co-host Simon Haigh. Simon, I'm tired. I'm weary today. I need more than a hug. I need someone to remove our government. And a lot of people, as you know, have been very scared and have been very fearful about the rules that they have just brought out, you know, trying to segregate people of this country. What's your thoughts on it? What's your thoughts?
I think I'd go further and say that for the first time since this started, the Irish population is predominantly angry. And pretty much overnight, to the shock of the nation, the government here have pushed back the opening of hospitality, indoor dining, and announced what I would say is a bit of a harebrained scheme to say that we have to have digital passports to eat inside our restaurants, right? And when you think about it, the people serving in our restaurants are the young population, right? They don't have any passports. They're working in there, but they're not vaccinated because the government's being, very slow in getting well. But the younger population haven't been vaccinated, so we've got a crazy situation where young population can serve us, and also the government are now turning around and saying, well, we need time to consider a scheme. They've had a year and a half, Joe. So I honestly think, this is just my opinion, at best, there's incompetence. At worst, there's something much more sinister.
Well, Simon, it's the great divide that they've created there, where people, it's not even young people who choose not to be vaccinated and people who choose to be vaccinated, and they're trying to create that divide. And the other thing as well is it can't happen because of human rights, because of our statute books. None of this can happen. But the government are trying to do it to force people who haven't to get them down to get vaccinated because they can't go for a pub or go for a meal. But what I've noticed from it, observing it, is it's no longer about COVID. That's the thing. Like, just people doing this because they want to eat or drink or go on holiday. It's no longer about virus. It's more about manipulation and control. And as speaking to people over the last 1 or 2 days who have actually said to me, our government now and our health advisory board are dangerous. They have lost control and they are dangerous. And they need to be stopped. And that's what people are saying. So we just have to watch this space, because I use an example of World War II. We had Stalin, Mussolini, we had Hitler, and then there was Mao and all these. And these are all these collective of people in a certain period. And they all caused major disruption and killed millions of people, all in a certain period. We're entering into another period. So madmen are always there. Hitler and his book, right? Have you read Schwab's book? And there's stuffs in Schwab's book that will we look at in 10 years' time and go, this man was a madman. So I think people have to really step back and look what's going on. Forget about COVID, forget about, the virus. Look at the manipulation and control that's going on, because it's escalating. It is truly escalating.
I think, you and I are positive optimists. And so let's look at this in that way. And I think we just need to ask more questions. I mean, 2 questions I would ask, and I've not actually heard them asked really, is number one, Ireland is the only country out of 27 in the EU where you cannot eat a meal inside, right? So my question is, why? That's number one, why? And the second question is, as of today, Ireland is the only country in the EU where you cannot travel freely on flights, because the rest of the EU have passed this digital certificate thing and Ireland hasn't. My question is, why? I just asked those 2 questions. I've not heard anybody ask those questions or answer them.
Well, I would ask one question. Please allow us to see your risk assessment analysis. Let us have a look at that. That's the one thing. But we could ask these questions all day. They're not being answered. And I've always said, if people don't answer questions, they're hiding something. But anyway, that's our
Let's
COVID,
move on to cheerier
COVID
things.
talk. Cheery stuff. Simon, it's you've moved. So you're in your lovely new pad. I'll be rolling up for that lovely coffee. If you can find a coffee machine, that's it. It's in here somewhere, Joe. Yeah. Our guest today is someone you and I know well, and he's a wonderful man by the name of Scott Ballard. He is a coach, a speaker, an author. He's referred to as the Confidence Coach, and I can vouch for this. He's done amazing stuff with me, and I would not hesitate recommending Scott to anybody who wants to match their confidence with the capability. His work is seen on, channels like NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS. He does this work by asking deep questions, really provoking you to align your mindset and your psyche and your soul to become a better version of you. And I hope I'm putting that the right way, Scott. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be on. My second home, Ireland. So, it's great to be here, and looking forward to this morning. This will be great.
This will be good.
It's funny, Scott, when we spoke, my God, 2019, I think it was, we always said, this is when you come over, we'll visit, and then stranger things happened on it. But just following on, you were listening to myself and Simon there, and I want to try and take the direction here as for business owners about great leadership and truth, speaking the truth. And I think that's very important. I think a lot of people do things for the sake of doing it, to either be people pleasers or just to not rock the boat, when sometimes you have to step out and speak the truth. But if you speak the truth, it may cause you a great anxiety within inside. So how do people deal about if speaking the truth and then dealing with that anxiety from being open in their conversation?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's an interesting conversation to listen to you two, because I know you both. So thank you for that. It's a great setup. So I think, it's interesting that I think it really comes down to truth begins with being truthful with ourselves. Leadership begins with leading myself first. And, that's where this whole conversation begins. So if I'm not truthful with myself, if I can't look in the mirror, be truthful about where I'm at, what I'm doing, the decisions, the choices, the things that I'm doing in my own personal life, then how can I be truthful and how can I lead people out there? Whether that be in my company, my family, in the country. You're talking about leadership in Ireland, and transparency and authentic transparency about this whole thing that's happening there as of today. And so that's where I start, and that's where I work with people, is being honest. But if you're going to be honest, you have to first start with asking the right questions, and then not settling for just the rote answer, but what's the real answer? What's the real why? Why is this in the way, or what's happening here? So truth is not easy, and it takes effort, and it takes digging, and as Simon will tell you, it takes commitment and courage. We have to have courage first, then commitment, and then we can make choices to actually live out our truth, right? Yeah. And why we struggle with politicians, not to jump on the bandwagon, but why we struggle is because the three of us listen to them talk, but their actions, you don't have to be a coach or a therapist or anybody to figure this out. Their actions don't match up with all the words. And then we're like, well, that's not true, or you're hiding something. I just want to have a conversation with them one-on-one. So if you guys could hook it up for me to have a conversation with your top 3 or 4 leaders one-on-one, I think we could get to some truth. I don't think it would take a long time.
I think you need to get to the back of the end of the queue there for that one.
But it's interesting.
There'll be a few people in front of you with boxing gloves on. So on that. Sorry, Simon, go on.
interesting. It's interesting. I mean, the politicians realize that most of us think they're being dishonest. And if they don't realize it, they're out of touch. And if they do realize it, why don't they do something about it? And then my next question is, maybe they don't, because they'd be out of a job if they were honest. But anyway.
Do they care?
Scott, Scott, you had an amazing journey. And I don't know, we haven't teed this up to the listeners here, but I don't know how much you're prepared to share about your early days, because I think, I know about it, and I think it's, to the extent you're willing to do so, I think it really opens up why you're doing what you're doing today. And of course, there was an intervening period, like all of us, where we lose touch with ourselves, and you got wrapped up into capitalism, and I did, and Joe did. But I think you've come back to that child, and I mean that in the best way. Do you mind sharing a little about your earlier experiences?
I'll make, so Simon, cut me off if I go too long in this, but so it actually did start then. I mean, Joe, I've explained this to Simon. So I was born in a very rural setting. I have great parents, siblings, perfect small child experience. And then we had, here in the States, we had, you go to primary school. And I went to primary school. I was super excited because I loved people. I loved the kids. I was excited about it. But a couple of months into it, I realized really quickly I was not learning like the other kids. Like I was not, learning to read, and it just wasn't happening for me. And I would watch the other kids and I'd go, what's wrong with me? And then a couple of months into it, in the little small town I grew up in, the teacher, my first grade teacher, actually came to my parents' house, kind of like a debrief, like, okay, this is how your child is doing. And I remember her saying that he's got to try harder, he's got to work harder. And I was like, man, I think I'm giving it all my effort. But my parents were very strict. And so, they sat me down and said, you've got to pour more in. I did. It got worse. My teacher finally took my desk. Now I'm 7 years old, took my desk, sat it in the corner and said, you're stupid, you're a dunce, and you'll never be anything. Okay. This is where my work began. I believed her because she said that's who I am. Okay, that's super powerful. I believe somebody of authority to say that that's who I am and that's my destiny. That's my future, right? And so at that moment, that's what happened. At that moment, I became suicidal. At that moment, I ran away from home. At that moment, I had all these terrible feelings about myself. But the odd thing was, I could then turn my focus almost like dreaming to get away from the pain. And I could look at Joe out on the playground playing football, and I could say, man, Joe is fantastic at football, or Joe is great at reading. I could see the abilities and the genius in people, but I couldn't see it myself. So I developed this superpower, this muscle to uncover and point out and bring out and draw out the superpower in others, but I couldn't do it for myself. And so that gets back to the truth that you guys were talking about earlier. It's interesting. The three of us, we could have this conversation all day long for the rest of the world, and they would be bored and we'd be happy about it. But this conversation about truth, I was living in a lie, right? And I didn't know what the truth was about myself, but I knew it in other people. And so through time, I've been able to find my own truth. But Simon's right. Now, the last 10 years, my work, my job, my passion, I just working with people, is to help them just get rid of the lie and exchange it for the truth of who they really are, right? And so this is what Simon's referring to. This is my journey. I'm trying to make it short and quick, but it all started back then.
Scott, it's interesting because the one thing that I'm seeing in the world today, like we have all spoken about ripping back the onion peels and finding out who we really are, and everybody, it lives some sort of lie, and that lie comes from an early stage, and those words that we were told, but I'm learning now that it goes deeper, a lot deeper than an onion. And I think when people talk about that part, they're only really at the top or at the bottom of it, whatever way. And it really gets into a part of when you see that everything around you is a lie, everything, when we walk out into the world, it's all fictitious. That's what I'm really learning. And the only way that you can really be yourself is when you make the decision, I'm going to speak the truth, but I'm going to do no harm on anybody either. And when you have the two of them together, and you then, you have your own consequences of what you're doing, but in the good, everything then just falls apart. It all just, it loses its power over you. You can call it the matrix or call it whatever you want in this world. It loses its power because you then discover, I get another shot at this. I have another shot at this, and I can make my life right. Is that what you're talking about, Scott?
Yeah, I am, and I love, Joe, the statement there that it's my truth, but it's not a weapon to then attack you or to put you down or whatever, right? And so as I get closer to my truth, as I get closer to living out the truth, I call it my true identity, I actually become a person that wants to and creates other people and helps other people live into their truth. So I'm not looking at their lie, I'm looking for their truth, which is a whole different conversation that I have with leaders, particularly in business, but that I have. So that's what I'm seeking. So it's like a missile seeking something. I'm seeking the best in them, the best version. I was on with a client last night. I'm seeking the best version for him to be who he wants to be. And it's not just one lane. It's his whole life, right? And so because I'm operating from that, that's my motivation. And I'm not using it the way, and we were talking earlier about politicians, they're using it for their own power. We're saying, no, the power really is in finding the good in you.
So Scott, I'd have a couple of, I'll start with one thing. So when you're working with a business owner, let's say a business owner, and when you're in business for yourself, you kind of make your own truth, right? And it's like there are two choices. You can either take the deluded route, or you can take the route that's the right aligned route for your business. But nobody teaches you this stuff. You've got to figure it out. When you have a client who's at that point in the pitchfork, and they could either go this way or that way, what kind of things is it? How could you describe what kind of things would you do to help them make sure they take the non-deluded route, the right route? What kind of things would you be suggesting to them to look at to make sure they're being honest with themselves in their continuing business journey?
Yeah, so, a statement that I use all the time, guys, is thinking about your thinking. And what is the origin of that thought? So if you give a scenario and you're deciding, making a decision in your business, where is that based out of? What's the thought that's based out of? And is that attached to the truth of who you are, or is that attached to a lie in some way? Right? And so that's where we begin to work, and it's not, people ask me this all the time, Simon, and I refer to you. It's not a rote thing. I come at this and I'm open. I'm like, okay, so we're trying to get to the truth. So it's generally a series of questions and thought, but that's how we measure that out, right? And so that's why it's so important that I can look in the mirror this morning and go, okay, am I living in my best identity? Am I living out my truth? Am I actually going out there and making a positive deposit in the people that I'll be talking with around the world today? Am I moving towards that, or am I moving towards something selfish, which is always attached to a lie? I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. No, it makes sense.
It's. I'm thinking it when you're saying that, and it's for me. That's for me. It's my turn to talk. It's for myself. It's trust again. Going back to what I'm about to say, or the way I'm about to act. Is it going to be right? Or am I going to be, like you, when you were a small child, am I going to be ridiculed? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where Simon was saying, taking those different paths. And, I call it, crossing the Rubicon, that once you cross that river, it all changes. And the only thing that's holding us back is our subconscious mind of something that happened to us in the past, which knocked us. And I think you have to really go back to where we were talking in the beginning, is going back to that child and finding out what was it that held you back? Who were you with? And where was it? And if you quiet your mind, you'll actually, that will come back up out of the subconscious and you can act on it. But even though you've discovered it, I think you then need to hold someone's hand to help you across that river.
Sponsored by the Dunleary Rattown Local Enterprise Office. You're listening to Business Eye on Dublin South FM.
You can't see it here, but I have this poster board that is actually a script to help to talk people back to their first memory of the lie. And it's actually 11 questions. And I actually do this with clients, and it is so powerful. And we don't realize that our childhood, our first memories, so mold our identity. And we're still doing things today. And Simon brought me back to being 7 years old. I still do things today because of what happened at 7 and 8. Yeah. Because I'm still working on unwrapping that, so to speak, and dealing with that at the age of 61.
I'm still terrified of nuns, because one of the nuns at my convent school said to me something that I didn't like when I was 7. So I still have to think about nuns. Scott, so in terms of, why is it that we kind of lose it at a certain point in our life, that you ended up in a tough place with business and stuff. And I know Joe had gone through stuff, and I've definitely been there. What is it inside us do we only get this when we've been through a crisis? Do we need to have a crisis to get this? Or is it possible for people to get this and have a nice, simple life all the way through? Maybe describe that process.
Yeah. So it really comes back to identity. So is the crisis really the worst thing, or is it the making of me? My life story is the problem actually is the way forward. It is the making of who I am. So I don't want to miss the problem. I want to go in there and I want to find the good stuff, meaning that the gift really is found in that. I found my truth in life, my identity, who I am really, not in the best of times.
Yeah.
But at the bottom of times, when I was 7, when we had the biggest lawsuit in the industry and we lost, and everybody said, you're going to win, you can't lose. And, we lost, all these setbacks. We had 11 business failures in my 20s and 30s, 11 in a row. My dear wife, she would say after every one, what did we learn and what are we going to do next? She had so much belief, but I didn't. But in that, I learned resilience. In that, I learned who I was. We don't usually get better when we're winning or when we're having, quote unquote, this unfathomable success.
I love that. I think just paraphrasing back, I think you said we find the true version of ourselves when we're at the bottom. And that resonates with me, Scott. I reached a pretty horrendous place 11 years ago. And looking back, I've never thought about this really, given what you said. looking back, when I was at that worst place where I was stripped naked of pretty much everything, metaphorically, and looking back, I was very humble. I was full of hope. I wanted to be honest, and so that must be the real me. That's what you're kind of saying, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask both of you this question then, and I'm sure some of our listeners are asking this question. When do you realize that you are faking or life isn't going right for you? And when do you know life is going right for you?
You go first, Scott.
Okay, so that's a great question, by the way. That's a fantastic question. Yeah. So here's my belief on that is that when we're alone and still and in a quiet place and no distractions, no computer, no phone, no whatever, wherever that is, it could be 3:15 a.m. in the morning when you wake up, that's when you know.
I was going to say something similar.
Because the world doesn't want us to know. So the world throws distraction at us 24/7, 365, right? So that would be that's a great question. I love that question.
That's uncanny, because I was going to say something very similar, Joe. I know when I've had a good, honest, honorable day, because I tend to, not always, but 9 times out of 10, I tend to sleep well and deeply. If I've had a day where I feel I haven't been the best version of me, or maybe I've been a bit dishonest, I wake up at 3:00. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The question doesn't matter. You know, that's really, I think, because it's a journey. And as you said, Scott, as well, and so you've had your good days and your bad, and we learn from all those bad experiences. Does it really matter? You know, once you are kind of striving towards be the better person that you are. And I think a lot of people, Simon, we went for a nice walk. We had a business meeting there, and we went for a nice walk. And the one thing we said, what is people's life purpose? And we said this last week as well. I wonder if there is no life purpose. It's just, you're here just to figure out to be you. And the real you, before you were 7 and had that mess in school, or before, someone in 20 said something to you, or in your 30s or 40s. It's just to be you and not care about any of that. And I think that's the hardest thing. I think we've been conditioned to care about what other people think. And it's only that real, true enlightenment of when we figure out, I'm just me. I'm not going to be the billionaire. I'm not going to be the fastest car driver. I'm not going to be the man on the moon. I'm just going to be me. And I think when you realize that, I think everything just falls apart for the right reason. And then you do see the path on it.
Yeah. Scott, why do you think people maybe in their 20s, it happened to me, and I know it did to Joe, they lose sight of this? It's around that time, and you get wrapped up in the whole capitalist thing, and that all kind of distracts you from that honest childhood and the more honest version of you. Why do you think that happens to us? We fall into that trap. Not all of us, but many of us. Why do you think that happens?
Yeah, I think we misplace our identity.
Yeah.
Because, you come out of the school system, you go into the world, and everybody is telling you and everything is telling you that your identity is in the success of your business, your career, that's who you are. And you're young, you have no experience, you probably don't have anybody in your life to actually ask you the questions around that. So you pursue that for, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it may be. And that, I went down that road. I mean, I was there. I can relate to those people. I think it's timing. I think it's, you get out of school. School does not prepare you for that onslaught, right? And I think that's part of it.
Isn't it? Yeah. Movies influences, the music influences. When I was growing up, it was Wall Street and, dog eat dog, and you kind of look at these people, and you were you were brainwashed, or it was propaganda to admire these people, because you've seen the material goods that they had.
Yeah.
And I think that's every generation. I think as you get older, in our 40s, in our 50s, and then into our 60s, I think you sort of get wiser. And, as I say, the closer you get to heaven, as the age, you become a bit more spiritual as well. Yeah. And what's that saying? Youth is wasted on the young, so, yeah.
Scott, I'm going to ask you a question. Somebody asked me at a live event a couple of months ago, and I thank goodness I didn't think about it. I honestly quickly, but are you happy, Scott? Would you say you're happy?
It's interesting. My wife, myself, we're doing a book club right now on a book called Happiness, and I would answer that as yes, but I would also put an asterisk by it and say that that's a work in progress. Right. I do want to interject something else to what Joe was just saying also, Simon, and that is that the loneliest people that I know are these business leaders. And it's very interesting because they're still trapped in that is their identity. And so, there's that group that they have never let that go, Joe. They're in their 60s now, and they're calling me, and I'm working with them, and they're the loneliest people I've ever met or known or worked with in my whole life. Wow. It's very, very fascinating. So, but to answer your question, Simon, happiness, yes. The pursuit of it, yes. The figuring out of it, yes. But as you know, Simon, questions. And where does our happiness come from? What does it look like? How does it show up in our life? But I really feel for my work that I'm doing, particularly now in the last couple of years, it's critically important that I am working very hard and really focused on learning and being happy in the truest sense of the word. Not the social media happy, but when I'm by myself this morning at 4 a.m., am I happy to sit there, drink my tea, do some reading, journal? Can I be happy in that spot, as well as talking to a Fortune 100 leader? Which am I more happy in? That's a really fascinating question for me. It used to be with that leader, and it's transitioning now to where it might be sitting and having my granddaughter on my lap and reading a book to her.
Yeah. I like my own solitude. I like sitting in the garden and feeling the sun on my face with a coffee in my hand and just pondering. That's really where I find the beauty in nature, the beauty in the world. When we've all come so digital, and when you step away from that, and let's go back to analog, nature, the universe, everything, and just sit with a coffee. That there for me is better than flying to some holiday or going out, and anything else, far away distance of camel rides and jumping out of planes. That there, just sitting with a coffee in my hand in nature, green, sun, everything. That's it for me.
I agree. I'll own up to something on radio as well. One of my favorite little moments, and I did it today, is when I get 15, 20 minutes, and I'm on a chore, I'm out in my car, I'll stop, pull over, and I'll make sure I pull over by a park where there are dogs, right? I'm just saying this publicly. And I just love sit in my car watching dogs play for 15 minutes. I don't think I've ever shared that with anybody. I just love watching dogs play. I just find there's unconditional happiness and joy. There, I've said it.
Ring me up. Okay, that's it. And there's one thing I'm maybe both you can help me with here. And I've heard it so many times that a lot of CEOs out there, feel alone in their organization. And I've never really experienced that. Or if I have, it's been so long ago, it doesn't affect me anymore. So I've lost that. Are there people out there that are so alone in their organization that they're screaming for help? Or is that just everyone just hoping that there's CEOs out there alone and screaming for help so they can get their business?
I think it's real, and Scott can validate this, but I've been there. I was a CEO in Australia, and it is very painfully lonely because the only people above you are the board watching everything you do. Everybody below you is watching everything you do, and unless you're lucky enough to have a mentor like Scott externally, you're very alone. So yeah, from my experience, it is. But Scott, sounds to me like it's pretty common.
Yeah, I think it's universal. When I have these conversations, I'm not surprised anymore. And so I actually ask questions about, like, do you feel alone? Do you feel, who do you talk to and it goes sideways? What's out? And they go, well, there's nobody. That's why I'm talking to you now. Like, there's nobody. I have 1 million employees and I'm calling you from a private jet because I don't know what to do. It looks like the board wants me to lay off 100,000 people today. And I don't have anybody to talk to that doesn't have an agenda, which is their own agenda and not what's best for everybody. So I'm calling you.
Yeah.
That's an everyday conversation that just sitting here talking with you guys is being fully transparent. I'm just going through all the people that have said that in their own way, but they're saying all the same thing. And, there's nothing more torturous for a human to feel disconnected like that. That is very painful. And no amount of money or things or status compensates for that in their life. It does. There's nothing. So,
yes. And
I agree.
Look, we've got a couple of minutes left on it, but I think it's our journey. I think it's for three of us who are business consultants and have walked the walk, have gone through many ups and downs and on many roller coasters, that it gets down to the very end about trusting your own decision and being a better decision maker and looking at everything. And yeah, we all need coaches and we all need mentors and we need people who are on our side, who are not within the company, as you said, have a vested interest in it. And I think by talking to people helps ourselves find out our own answers. I think that's really what it is, and it's talking to people who are willing to listen to what you have to say without judgment. I think that's it. Yeah. On it.
Joe, I have a statement. I used it with Simon and when we were talking, I didn't use it, but I said it to him. I said, listening is loving. Powerful listening is the greatest service I do. People say, well, it's all about the questions. I go, actually, the most powerful moments with my clients are when I'm deeply listening and they have an insight or a breakthrough, and that's what they needed, right? They needed that on the deepest level. And so, yeah, I think that's listening is loving, and love is the answer in all relationships, always.
Everything. Yeah.
But if I don't love myself, if I can't start to take the journey, I call it the journey to loving myself, accepting myself where I'm at, true identity, then I don't have anything to pour out to others and to love them.
Yeah.
So that's why the happiness journey, Simon, is so important for me, because I want to love people and serve them, but I also want to be happy so that they can start to have that happiness, because ultimately everybody does everything in order to be happier. Everybody does every decision thinking that it's going to make them happier.
It's true. It's true. Even in the worst situations, in addiction, at that point, people believe that by continuing on, it's going to make them happy. It doesn't. They've been caught by the neck. But you're right. We do everything with a view to it. But finding true happiness requires real, deep intentionality. It requires real work, doesn't it? It's not lazy work, Scott, and that's the work you do.
It's commitment and it's courage, and it's wonderful to partner with somebody and build that trust and be able to see them experience that.
Yeah.
And I love that. My thought really is, guys, is that I've just begun my career today. All that's happened in my life today has been practice and preparation so that now I may serve people in such a powerful way that they will never forget the conversation I had with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hope to do in 40 years.
Here it is. This is what I say to myself. When I turned 50, I said the last 50 years was an apprenticeship of figuring out life. And the next 50 years now is my career. Yeah.
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 Joe, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Scott, if people want to catch you,
we can talk for hours.
Scott, if we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to have our business showcase come on in the second part of the show. So, Scott, I'd like to thank you coming on to Business Eye here at Dublin South FM. And I know if people want to reach out to you, they can reach out to you, Scott Ballard, in LinkedIn, and they can have a conversation with you as well. So, and for our guests and for all our audience as well, myself and Simon, if you want to connect with ourselves, it's businesseyeadvisory.com, where we will continue on having conversations like this and sharing the world of business and love. Business and love, that's it.
Sponsored by the Dunleary Rattown Local Enterprise Office. You're listening to Business Eye on Dublin South FM.
Well, Simon, back to our second half of Business Eye on Friday. That was a great chat that we actually had with Scott. I love having him on. He's brilliant. He makes me actually look at my own life and look about how I'm going to move forward as well. So it's brilliant. It's really, really good. Great start to a weekend. Great start to a weekend.
He's a wonderful man. When he said we find the true version of ourselves when we're at rock bottom or when we're at bottom, and he just says things that really resonate. And then he was talking about why we go from innocent childhood to an awakening in later life, and in the middle we misplace our identity. And if only people could teach you this stuff when you're young, you wouldn't make the mistakes you and I have made, Joe.
Mistakes? No, we never make mistakes. We just learn the wisdom from it all. But what's now? We are moving into the summer as well, and hopefully there's been mistakes made that hopefully may be unwritten in our country. But yes. Today now we have our showcase. Our business showcase, and we have Caroline Gleeson on from Occupop. Caroline, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Joe. How are you?
It is great to have you on as our business showcase this week. You're a recruitment agency, is that correct?
Not quite. So we're a recruitment software. So essentially, Occupop is a recruitment software for SMBs. And what the software is an end-to-end recruitment solution for companies. So, anyone that's looking to recruit would use our software from, engaging talent, managing them through the recruitment process, right through to hire. So it's a very cost-effective alternative to agency recruitment. Sorry, go on.
No, so is it a case of, where we go through, where we used to go through those CVs and is it now sort of automating a lot of it as well? So it's online instead of people filling in documents, filling in information, and then it's sending them down different funnels to actually then find the right candidate. Is that what it would be?
Essentially, yeah. It's really, I suppose, about reducing a lot of the administration in recruitment so that hiring managers can spend more time within the process, actually spending time with the candidates and finding the right hire for their business. And there are lots of great features to enable that.
I love the name. You're saying it's two words, occupation and population. It's a cool name. And so in terms of, I know some industries, or some of the, social talent in Dublin is already looking forward to the future to see, what recruiters need to be looking for in candidates around cohesion, inclusion, all this sort of stuff. Do you see trends in the industry, or do you see challenges in industry? And if so, does that get built into the way you plan your software, or are you planning further versions? To talk us through how you're looking at the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. So, we would try and keep our finger on the buzzer when it comes to trends, and how we really track trends would be through, a combination of looking at, metrics and activity on our software itself, and then, looking at the market and talking to our customers. What are they saying? What are they, finding challenging? Certainly the pandemic turned everything on its head, and, overnight everyone had to, work from home where they could, and everything went online. So Occupop was in a really good position in that it facilitates online recruitment. You can log in from anywhere and continue to manage your recruitment process. So certainly with the shift in the pandemic, we have seen, the emphasis on everything being online, and being able to, facilitate the process being online. Other big trends that we're seeing, there's quite a big emphasis at the moment on diversity and inclusion. Yeah. So, when you think about forward thinking, we're doing a lot of research at the moment with our customers and with our development team on how we can create features to enable companies to reach better levels of diversity and inclusion within their recruitment process.
You need to recruit old guys like Joe and me.
Old, get away, will you? Old. There's one thing, that when you mention to people about recruitment agencies, a lot of people think recruitment agencies are like used car salespeople. They're trying to sometimes fit square pegs into round holes, because the recruiter is only thinking about the money. And with your software, you're really sort of helping the end user, so the employer, the more than the recruiter, I can't even say it now, or are you helping both sides?
Actually, that's a great point. And I used to work in agency recruitment myself, as did the co-founder. And it was actually working as an agency recruiter and, certainly facing those connotations that, it was really through those challenges and those pains that we came up with the idea for, building this company. And, our whole mission is to make recruiting easy. And I would say everything we do with the product, every feature we build has that goal in mind. Like we like to kind of call our software beautifully simple, so that it's very effective, but very simple and easy to use. And everything we do is in that direction. Our customers are hiring managers, companies themselves, recruiting staff for their own organizations. However, we do have agencies acting as suppliers on our software. So, for example, if a company wanted to work with an agent, they can engage them on our platform as well. So we are also facilitating that relationship and, making that relationship, I suppose, easier to build, for both parties. So I would say certainly the benefits are for the customer. They're making not only savings on their recruitment budget, but on the time to hire and how easy it is to collaborate. But as well, recruiters are getting a higher level of engagement with companies that do want to work with them as well.
I'll ask you two questions here. What has it been like over the last 5 years for you, and what is the next 12 months going to be like?
It's certainly been a roller coaster. We actually just turned, Occupop is my very first baby, my oldest baby, which is now 5. So, that was a huge milestone. And certainly we were looking at all that we've achieved in those years. And we were humbled by it. We never thought we'd get to this point. We're operating in 6+ countries. We have a team of 50 now, absolutely wonderful team. And a huge book of amazing customers. So that's been a huge achievement, but certainly it's been hard work. and it's been challenging. Perseverance definitely has been key. Certainly for the next 12 months, we have a big focus on the product and really kind of, I suppose, enhancing some of our existing features, making them even more simple to use and better for the user. And also, we have some really exciting features that we're implementing into the software, and we're very focused on the core markets that we're growing in, which would be Ireland, UK, and the USA.
What advice would you give to a business that is starting up now, who will be listening to this, for your wisdom?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I suppose there's a lot of resources out there. I got some advice very early on that always kind of stuck with me, and it was actually from my father. And he said, I was having a really bad day, and I was finding this is really challenging. He said, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And that really just kind of stuck with me. And when we've had our low points, I've just kind of reminded myself of that. And like, this is why we're doing it. And just persevered, really.
That's it. And in coaching, and Simon will agree that, if running your own business was easy, we'd have no employees and everybody would be self-employed. So
this is it, yeah.
No, I think I call it the growth zone. It's very easy to stay lazy and stay in your comfort zone, but to grow, you've got to go through two other zones. You've got to go from comfort through fear, learning, and then grow. There's no shortcut, I don't think. I haven't come across it, from comfort to growth. You have to go through that.
You'd be a very rich person if you found that shortcut, I'd say.
Simon, there is a shortcut. There is a shortcut.
What is it?
The shortcut is hiring someone who has walked the path and help you then not fall into those big holes, that will actually help you navigate around them. So
that is great advice. And
to do that.
Yeah.
I actually have found, reaching out to people on LinkedIn and, asking their advice. People are so willing to share, their journey with you. And it's certainly been a great source of advice for us over the years as well.
Tell me, if people want to reach out to yourselves, want to check out your software to help them within their recruitment process, where can they locate yourselves?
Yeah, so we're occupop.com. That's OCCUPOP.com. Or if they want to email, they can email info@occupop.com. Lots of resources on the website, and we'd be only more than happy to hear from anyone. Even if you're wondering, is this right for you? We can have a chat and discuss that further.
And you are on LinkedIn as well yourself personally?
I absolutely am on LinkedIn. And if anyone wants to touch base with me there, even if they're thinking about starting up a business and, want to ask me questions, I'm more than happy to respond and have that chat.
Brilliant. Caroline Gleason, thanks for coming on.